I think the stigma around thrifting a Christmas gift or making a Christmas gift out of your scraps needs to go yesterday. I understand with thrifting a little bit. It's pre-owned, it's been owned by someone else before, but you know what? We have enough clothing to clothe 6 generations. That is crazy. And we have enough stuff on this planet where literally everyone could have stuff and we'd all be more than happy with what we had. If you're not a billionaire, the economy also just keeps getting worse and worse and worse for all of us, and big corporations are almost literally setting our world on fire. So I think experimenting with thrifting and using your scrap material would be a great idea this year. I'm sure all of us have someone on our gifting list that, 1, would either be completely willing to try thrifting a gift for each other this year, or 2, would love something handmade by you, regardless of whether it's made out of the scraps that you have left over. I have seen a couple of thrifted gift guides and like DIY gift guides floating around on YouTube, and I have not watched those yet. I'm gonna give a gift guide that is both a little bit of thrifting and a little bit of DIYing, specifically from leftovers that you might have around your house. And most of them are beginner friendly, if not all of them. There's gonna be some thrifting ideas, there's gonna be some crocheting ideas, and there's gonna be some sewing ideas. You can also use fabric glue. I won't judge you. But first, I wanted to try to experiment with a couple of things that I see at the thrift store all the time. I'll tell you what worked, what didn't work, so that if you would like to try something similar, you won't fail. One of them isn't a complete fail, but one of them didn't work out as well as I wanted them to. So we're gonna do an experimentation segment, and then we'll come back here and I will give you my little mini gift guide. Let's go. Okay, so the thrift store was a bit of a bust this time. Didn't really find a lot, but I actually think this is the best case scenario because I can show you that even on a bad day at the thrift store, you still have so many options for possible gifts. Let me show you the shopping and then we'll come back here. We're going Goodwill hunting, which is the best thrift store in town for me. The prices are still the best, and most thrift stores in my town massively overcharge. There was already some Christmas stuff out, and this was literally November 1st. So there'll be more as the month goes on. Then I went to the sweaters, but they had moved them and mixed them with the sweatshirts for some reason. I hated that. I also stopped by the home fabric department, which even in my thrift store that has a very tiny section, it always has 1 or 2 great options for thrifted fabric. For this video, what I really wanted to find was some kind of vessel for one of my plans for gifts, and there are always good options here, and I found this really cute Christmas color mug, and those Coca-Cola glasses in the back are so cute, but that's not what I'm looking for. I also found this huge mason jar, but I have plenty of those at home, so I'll leave that for someone else. And I found a couple of pretty good options for vessels, but then I ran across this beautiful beer stein, which has this winter deer glass etching on the side. The only problem was that it said dad on the top, but I do need a gift for my father. I'll be using it for this video and then I'll be gifting it to him afterwards. So sweaters, not usually as many as they have at my thrift store. Like I feel like usually they have so many, but maybe that's more towards the summer. I don't know. Let me show you what I found. I found 2 sweaters, this really cute little mustardy one. I loved the cable knit and I think I'll make a really cute hat. I think I might be able to make a hat and mittens out of this. Have I said what I'm doing? I'm making hats and mittens. So this was $6. I think this might have been $7. Maybe they were both $7. There is this really long, it might even be a sweater dress that I found at the thrift store. Again, another $7 for this. Like, look at this. Like, I think this is just perfect for a little hat, like right here. Again, another beautiful cable knit, and it feels really soft. This was probably the softest sweater I could find. Usually at the thrift store, you might be able to find pillowcases or like quilted placemats. I already have more than enough pillowcases and quilted things from the thrift store, and I actually had several options, which I'll show you now. They were very cute, and they're all, I think a couple of them are bedroom pillowcases and a couple of them are like living room pillowcases, but I think as long as you have 2, either will work for the project I have in mind. I think that pillowcases can make a really adorable tote. Totes are really in right now. Like that Trader Joe's tote is viral at the moment. I think a tote would be a perfect Christmas gift. If you have more stuff to give this person, you can put all the gifts in this and then they have a usable tote afterwards, and it's not just like a one-time use gift bag. Oh, hello. Oh, hello. As I get distracted by petting my dog, let's let voiceover Brie take over. So I had many different options for scrap fabric for the straps. But I decided to go with this taupe floral pattern. I thought the patterns played off well with each other. Then I measured how long I wanted my straps to be by eyeballing it. I think I ended up choosing 67 inches, which I think was a bit too long, but it was still okay. Then I wanted the straps to be 2 inches wide, so I cut out 5-inch wide strips because you need 4 inches for the front and back plus half an inch on both sides for a seam allowance. So that adds another inch, making it 5 inches total. I was originally going to keep the zippers at the top of the tote so that there would be built-in sections, but alas, that would make the toile pattern upside down, so I just trimmed them off so I could make a seam at the bottom. Then I went ahead and put those 2 pillowcases together, quote unquote right side to right side. I also made the mistake of stitching up the sides, which I had to undo because I need to add the straps first. For the straps, after sewing the pieces together to make the length I needed, I ironed in the side seams and then ironed it again in half. And you could also do the tube method here, but I avoid having to turn the tubes inside out whenever I can because I hate that so much. So I'm doing it this way instead. Then I pinned it to the pillowcases, starting at the bottom, and I would get the 2 pieces to meet there. I started by having them be really close to the side seams, but that made it sit weird on the shoulder, so I moved them in about 3 inches more. Then I stitched it down on both sides of the straps. Then it was time to top stitch the side seams together because I thought the piping would be cute to keep on the outside. And it's time to show you the final result. I'm I'm pretty proud of this. It's a lot larger than I thought it was going to be, but it makes for a great like overnight tote or grocery bag for anyone who needs it, and it's super unique. No one else will have this exact tote. All right, let's move on to the projects that were a bit more all over the place when it comes to how successful they were. So I started by tracing my hand for mittens, and the fingers portion was fine, but the thumb ended up being too small. So if you're going to make mittens, I would recommend your thumb being much wider than you think it needs to be. Here's my biggest piece of advice for the mittens specifically. When at the thrift store, I would actually look for a fleece sweatshirt instead. I see several every time I go to the thrift store, and I thought about picking one up, but I immediately forgot about it the second I walked into the store. And I can even show that there's one right here. You can make both mittens and hats out of these, and you don't have to fear anything unraveling or fraying or falling apart like you have to with sweaters. Now, if you decide to use a sweater, using as many pre-made seams as possible will help you a lot. Now, I would probably use these side seams as well as that bottom hem for the mittens, but I use just the bottom hem for my starting point. I used the oversized cowl neck turtleneck thing at the top for a hat, and that actually ended up being perfect. The only area I had to stitch down was the top, which will not get much wear and tear, and the sides and bottom hem are already finished. Because this was such a mixed bag, I actually changed directions for the second sweater and decided to make arm warmers instead, as I'd be able to kind of tuck in those unraveling edges better. I was also considering making a sweater for my dog out of the body, but that quickly went downhill. So arm warmers it is. Now, the other option, if you'd still like to use a sweater, is to thrift a 100% wool sweater. Or if you already own an old sweater that is 100% wool, you can use that as well. And then you felt it. You can put it in the washer on high heat for a couple of times or stick it in a tub of water with soap. I've actually seen tutorials up on YouTube if you want to look around for one. That will shrink the wool by a lot, so be prepared, but then the yarn will no longer come apart and you can use a lot more of the sweater that way. If you do decide to felt, you can actually just follow the steps I'm doing here. But anyway, what I did at this point was do a mattress stitch along every raw edge, and I tried to make them as close together as possible, picking up what looked like every other stitch. For the hat, I started the same way, but to get the correct rounded shape, you'll also need to take a dart out of the top. So I just pinched a bit off the top into a general dart shape, and it will look kind of like a straight line from the side, like this. And I just did a straight stitch across that, and we're not gonna cut it off, we're gonna leave it as is. Then for the arm warmers, as you saw earlier, I chose my length and then added 3 to 4 inches to that because we're going to create kind of this large hem on the inside. So I folded it in several inches and then tucked that raw edge under by about 3/4 of an inch and stitched that all together, making sure that it was invisible from the outside. You can leave it here, but I wanted to make an area for the thumb, so I put it on and did just tiny stitches delineating that area between my fingers and my thumb. and let's see how these turned out. The hat turned out perfect. I really love it. It's even a great weight for a hat, and the mittens are cute, but I have no confidence that they would last very long, so I'd feel bad giving those to someone. But the alternative of the arm warmers is perfect. The raw edge is hidden, so it's much more stable, and it's perfect for anyone who maybe works out of the house but gets chilly easily. I tested them out and I was loving just staying warm while I was typing. So if you wanted to thrift a sweater exactly like I did, I would buy a slim cowl neck sweater so that you could make a hat and arm warmers. All right, so of the gifts that I did not make, I have a few more ideas for if you have little pieces of scrap material or things that I see often at the thrift store. All right, so first off, for small amounts of scrap fabric, I have several people in my family who are obsessed with these, and they're little keychain wristlets, and they use so little fabric, and you can either use scrap fabric that you have around the house, or a perfect thing to use would be placemats, which I already talked about earlier. There's always a placemat at the thrift store. So after thinking of all these ideas, I then went on YouTube to try to find tutorials for you guys so that it would be free. And then there's also cheap patterns that if I've used them, I'll put them down below. If that feels like too small of a gift, you can also add on your favorite lip gloss and kind of hang that on there. A keychain that feels really personal to them, or one of those traveling hand sanitizers. I love those, just to buff out the gift a little bit. Another great way to use scrap fabric is to make a bookmark. Now again, this is quite a small gift. I will tell you how I would add a couple of more ideas to this gift, but it doesn't require a lot of fabric. There are so many different styles that you can do. You can make them several. If you have a friend like me, I use receipts and trash as my bookmarks. I would love someone to make me like 4 or 5 bookmarks. That way I always have them on hand. But there's so many different styles, and my favorite is actually this one that I found while I was looking around, and it is this tea bag bookmark. In fact, I have this really cute idea that I think I'm gonna be really inspired by, and we'll do this at the end of the video, which is a perfect rainy/snowy afternoon in a gift. Either buying them some really fancy tea, or making your own tea starter kit, thrifting a mug from the thrift store, or some kind of vessel. I am always a little afraid of maybe like lead poisoning, so I try to thrift mugs that look newer, and then either go to a secondhand thrift store and look for a book that this person would like, or buy them a book that you know they love, and then add on this little tea bag bookmark, and I think it would be such a cute, it's the perfect afternoon. I love that it's kind of an experience, but it's also a gift wrapped into one. If you also have crafty loved ones who love to DIY, so whatever. I also have a couple ideas for them as well. Now this one I have seen all around Pinterest, so this isn't really my idea, but I just wanted to share it just in case you hadn't seen it. Thrifting an old teapot and then using it as a little mini sewing basket. And I think if you thrift a pretty one, it could also be great for them to just put on their table. So when you open it, there's a little pin cushion in the top, and then inside you can put scissors, thread, whatever. That's also kind of useful, but really pretty for someone's home if you know they like tea kettles or vintagey looking things. I think that'd be a great gift. The other thing you can sew with scrap fabric is a pin cushion. I'm obsessed with like weird looking pin cushions, and I'd love to receive that from someone. I'm always on the lookout for them, and it'd be so fun to make my own. I might have to now, but I found several that are just so cute and unique. Having something in our sewing supplies that makes us smile is so fun. It makes the experience so much better. Now, the last thing you could do for this category, we all have that friend or loved one that has been promising that they want to learn how to sew for years. So what you could do is either thrift some kind of small tote or basket, or you can make your own fabric basket out of scrap fabric. Buy them a couple of things like a seam gauge, pins, thread, and you have the perfect gift for someone who is wanting to learn how to sew in the new year. And if you're feeling really nice and you do know how to sew, you can even throw in a free sewing class. That's a larger gift, but I thought it'd be a really cute idea. Now, I also have a few ideas for your more fashionable friends. This is more of a mixture of sewing and crochet/knitting. I found crochet patterns and crochet tutorials, but you can also just look for knitting tutorials as well. First up is something I made for myself earlier this year, which is these oversized collars. I'm obsessed with them. They have been in style for at least a couple of years now. And I really like that these are size inclusive. You can make them for any size of person and they'll pretty much work for everyone. And they are so easy to make. I thrifted a tablecloth, which there's, again, almost always a tablecloth at my thrift store. And you can make more than one out of a tablecloth. They are so simple and easy to make. It took me an hour or two to make mine. I think if you have a more stylish friend who's into fashion, this could be a really great homemade gift for them. There's also a crochet a granny square version of this collar that I think is so cute. And speaking of crochet, if you need some yarn stash busting ideas, but you don't want to do maybe the hat and scarf idea, which I do love, I've made that for several people. I just wanted to think of a little bit different ideas. One of the things that I crocheted for myself earlier this year were crochet scrunchies. You can also make this out of fabric. They are so easy to make. They're so cheap. Again, you can use scrap fabric for that as well. I just thought the crochet one that I made was so beautiful and almost artsy feeling. And I feel like giving someone a few of those could be really special. And again, they were really simple to make. Took barely any time, especially as we get into December almost here. You know, having smaller projects to give people if you are maybe running a little bit behind could be a good idea. There's also hooded scarves that I think is maybe instead of doing a hat and a scarf, just a hooded scarf could be really cute. And it doesn't look like you need a ton of yarn to get that done. You could also do bonnets. I made myself one at the end of last year, beginning of this year. It is so cute. And I used leftover yarn from that. I made a little sweater vest, and what I had left over, I made a little bonnet, and it was so cute. Using scrap fabric and kind of putting them in specific ways to where they look purposeful could be so cute for either the scarf idea or the bonnet idea. That scrap fabric sweater that a bunch of people have done different versions of, I think that could also look cool for any of these crochet ideas. Bonnets are also great for people who maybe have a little bit more sensitive ears that don't like their ears to be pinned by their hat. There's also these little triangles that you can either make as a neckerchief or they can put it over their head when it's cold. I see a lot of fashionable people wearing those and I love them. I want to make one day. And again, that doesn't use a ton of yarn. I've made these for people before. I absolutely adore these. Are a shrug or sleeves. Again, they use a lot less yarn than making an entire sweater. If you're a beginner, they're pretty much just rectangles. So they're really simple to make. And once again, they use a good amount of yarn, but they're not half as much as an entire sweater, and they are much quicker to make than a sweater. Okay, that's all the ideas that I could think of. Just a little mini gift guide here, but one of them inspired me so much. And y'all know what it is. I already told you I'm doing it. Perfect afternoon tea book gift. I'm gonna do that one really quickly. I think that is such a cute idea. So let's see how I did it. So I started with the bookmark and I eyeballed a tea bag like shape, and I wanted it to be a bit larger than a tea bag because I felt like that might be annoying to sew. So I basically just added a couple of inches to the classic tea bag size if you include seam allowances. And then I cut out a little rectangle for the top and got some string for the string. It's hard to describe the parts of a tea bag. It made it much easier cutting things on the fold, and I stuck the string in to where the seams were going to be sewn, and then when it's right side out, it'll be tucked inside the fabric. And no, I totally didn't do that wrong the first time. I wasn't originally going to top stitch the tea bag section, but it wasn't laying correctly and it ended up looking better this way. Most people won't have to do this, but for the aesthetics of it all, I wanted to make a little sock cover for the top of the beer stein. Oh, also, I didn't mention this before, but the beer stein was 99 cents at the thrift store. That is one of the best deals I've ever had. My mind could not grasp how to cut this on the fold correctly, but third time's the charm, and I eventually got it. In order to be able to slip it on, I also measured some elastic to add onto it. And I stitched that all together, and it ended up looking a little bit like a golf hat, but it also made it look more like a gift. For the tea, I made a chai starter kit with a bunch of spices. I'll either add a link to the recipe below or find a similar one. This is my mom's recipe from forever ago, and I don't know where she got it from. I also added instructions for the gift receiver so that they know how to heat it up and how to make it. I added fresh rosemary, even though that's not one of the flavors of the chai. I just thought it would make it all smell really nice when opened. I love this themed gift. I'm going to be using this idea for so many years to come. I hope this guide was helpful or maybe inspired you to do your own ideas of thrifting or using your own leftover fabric or yarn. That's going to be it for me this week. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a good time. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more from me. And I hope to see you back here next time. Bye.